Today I'm going to show you how to make one of these unicorn, Pegasus, horse, ponies. It's going to be cute. Let's get going. So to make the horse, you're going to need a 24 peg loom, a 12 peg loom, an 8 peg loom, and if you want to make a unicorn horn, you can either use the 8 peg, or if you have the Loops and Threads knitting spool from Michaels, you can use the small side with the 5 pegs to make the horn a little smaller. So we're going to start with the head. Grab your 24 peg loom, and we're going to make a slip knot. So wrap your yarn around your 2 fingers, leave a space, push it in through the back, pull up a loop, and then grab both pieces of yarn that are coming out of that loop and just tighten. And then we're going to adjust that to the anchor peg, and we're going to do a drawstring cast on of just how many? Just half the pegs. Half 24 is 12. So we're just going to lay the yarn across the first 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Go in behind peg 7, in front of 8, behind 9, and so on until you get to peg 18. So this was 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. You get to 18, wrap it around the peg, and then lay the yarn across back the other way. And you're going to knit over on every peg that already has a loop on it. So you can see that peg 17 has nothing, so we're just going to lay that across. Peg 16 has a loop on it, so we're going to knit that over. This one has nothing, this one has a loop. Okay, until you get back to the beginning of your cast on. And remember, the beginning of the cast on is peg 7, not this yarn. So you get to peg 7, you're going to wrap it around and then knit over on peg 8, and that will secure your yarn in place. And now we're going to knit back and forth for 10 rows. So we're going to finish this row. Oops. That's your row 1. Turn around on that same peg, knit it again, and continue on back the other way. Okay, and there's your row 2, and we're just going to do that, turn around, knit the peg again, and we're going to do that for 10 rows. Alright, once you get 10 rows done, you should be back here on the left, and now we're going to start our increases. So we're going to knit row 11, and then increase 1. And we do that by wrapping the yarn around the front of the peg, bringing it back up through the back, and placing it in front of the previous peg, and then you knit over, and now you've got 1 more peg wrapped than what you had. And we're going to do that on every row until we get every peg wrapped. So that was 11, now we're on 12. And when you get to the other side, it is the exact same thing. You're going to knit off your last peg, put it in front, bring it up behind, and lay it in front of the previous peg, and then knit off. And we're going to do that for, I believe it's 13 rows, until you have every peg wrapped and you are back at peg 24. When you get to your last peg, it's going to be peg 1. and you're going to wrap that one and then finish the row. So you want to be back on peg 24. Now, since we've been knitting flat, you can see that there is a gap here. And we want to start knitting in the round now. So in order to connect them, you just put your yarn over the next peg and knit over. And now they're connected. Real simple. And now you're going to start knitting in the round, and you're going to go for another 10 rows. So this is just straight knitting. Once you get to 24, you go to 1 again for 10 rows. Once you have those 10 rows done, we're going to do the drawstring cast off. So scoot your stitches down a little. Wrap your loom 1.5 times to measure a length for the tail. Snip that. And in order to cast off, you're going to knit over, just like you've been doing, and then pull through. Knit over and pull through. And we're going to do that all the way around until every peg is empty. Okay, once your project is free of the loom, you're going to stretch your stitches all the way around. Find your cast on tail and pull that tight. Turn this inside out, and we're going to sew up this hole using the cast on tail. So grab the needle, and we're just going to start sewing up the length of this. Make sure it's inside out. Okay, make sure there's no holes. And now to make your knot, you're just going to do, why is this so twisted up? One more pass and leave a loop, and then you're going to go in through the back of that loop and then pull tight. Now you can turn this right side out. Grab your stuffing. I'm going to stuff all the way into the nose first. A little bit more. Okay, when you're satisfied with your stuffing, which I'm not, you can pull the cast off tail tight. Thread your needle. And find where that hole is. And go in, hold your tail to the top or the bottom, go in on the opposite side, come out where the tail is, pull that stitch tight, go in again, come out slightly next to where the tail is, And just like before, go in through the back of a loop and pull that tight. And this is your horse head shape. Send this through almost to the bottom, and you're going to use this to sew on the neck. Next we're going to do the ears, so you're going to need an 8 peg loom. We're going to make your slip knot, attach it to the anchor peg. We're going to do the drawstring cast on again, this time all the way around. So when you get back to peg 1, you're going to go behind the first peg again. So there's going to be nothing on that first peg. And then you're going to knit over on peg 2. Lay it across peg 3, knit over on peg 4, and so on until you get to peg 8. And then in order to start row 1, you're going to have to just lay the yarn across peg 1 and then knit over on peg 2 to secure it in place. So for the ears, you're just going to knit for 6 rows. Once you get your 6 rows done, we're going to do the drawstring cast off. Let me see. We're going to wrap the loom twice to leave a long tail for sewing. And same as before, you're just going to knit off and pull through all the way around. Once it's free of the loom, you're going to stretch your stitches just gently because it's pretty small. Grab your cast on tail and pull that tight. Thread your needle. Find your cast off tail and put that at the bottom. So that looks like this. And now you're going to put a couple stitches, it says from the bottom of the ear on the back, so that the front stays open but it becomes pinched. So you're going to go, let's see, where can I put this? In through about the middle, and just gently, don't pull it too tight. And then you're going to start sewing back and forth as in a running stitch. So flip that around and you're going to go just a stitch or 2 lower. Flip it back around, stitch or 2 lower. Now you can pull it a little bit tight. You can see that the top of the ear opens up and then the bottom of it is kind of pinched closed. And you can go over that again if you like. I think I will go a little bit closer to the edge. Pull it a little tight. There we go. And now make sure this is on the inside. Push the top inside out a little bit, and we're gonna make a knot. Open that loop. And then you can cut this. And now the ear looks like this. A little open on the top, a little closed on the bottom. And then we can sew this to the head. So that it's sort of pointing up. There we go. One ear. And, oops. And you're gonna need 2 of those. Now that you've got both ears on, we're gonna do the body next. So grab your 24 peg loom. And same thing as before, we're just gonna do the drawstring cast on all the way around. And then you're gonna knit 42 rows. Once you're at least 3 rows in, you can go ahead and release the knot on the anchor peg so that it isn't tugging on the project while you make your 42 rows. Once you have your 42 rows done, measure around your loom once and cut the yarn, and then do your drawstring cast off. Once it's free of the loom, you're going to stretch your stitches, pull your cast on tail, knot it on the inside, and then we're going to stuff it. Once you're satisfied with the stuffing, pull the cast off tail, and we'll knot that on the outside. And then you're done with the body. Next we'll do the legs, so you're back to your 8 peg loom. And we're going to cast on in your hoof color. And for me, that's going to be this worsted weight one. And we're going to do 4 rows. Four rows for the hoof. Once you get your 4 rows done, you can cut this. Set that to the side. And you're going to tie on your main body color to knit the rest of the leg. So to change colors, you're going to make a slip knot, attach it to peg 1, tie these 2 tails together, keep it tight to the left, hold on to those 2 tails, take the slip knot off of the peg and pull the knot out. And now you can start working with your new color. And we're going to go to row 27. When you're done your 27 rows, you're going to do your drawstring cast off like always. And then pull the cast on tail and make a knot for the hoof. And then stuff, and for the cast off tail, we're just going to pull it just enough to neaten the edges so that it's not splayed out like that. And you're going to want 4 of these. So to sew it to the body, for the first one you can just put it anywhere. You're going to want it close to one side for it to be the front or the back. You're going to put your tail on one side and sew up across the top of your leg. And then you're going to want to start sewing down the side a little bit, because we want her to be able to stand up. Now, instead of having it stuck out and just sewing around the top, we're going to sew up the side a little bit. So you can see how it is laid to the side of the body, and you're going to take a stitch from the body and a stitch maybe almost a third up the way of the leg. Keep going like that. And then you'll just have this side left. Don't forget to wrap your loom twice when you're doing your drawstring cast off, because you're going to need a long tail to be able to sew these on. Okay, when you're ready, oh, one more stitch. When you're on your last stitch, leave a loop and then go in through the back of that loop. That'll be your knot. Go in with your needle as close to that knot as you can get. Come out anywhere. Pull that tail tight to bring the knot into the inside. Snip it, and if there's any bit left, you can just give it a little squish and it'll disappear. Okay, so there's one leg. And for the rest of them, you're going to want to line it up so that they are even in length, so that all the hooves match heights. And once these are all sewn on, we'll do the neck. Once you have all 4 legs on, it should look like this. And next we're going to do the neck. So grab a 12 peg loom and your main body color. And we're just going to drawstring cast on and do 12 rows. Once you have your 12 rows done, you can wrap your loom twice to leave a long tail. Do your drawstring cast off. And now you're going to stretch your stitches. And we're going to pull these tails just enough to neaten the edges for both sides. It's a little tricky, but basically you just want a cylinder. Okay, we're going to decide which of these sides is the front. Thread your needle. And if you have them, pins will be really useful here. You're going to want it facing a little bit forward. Let me get a few pins in here first. Okay, make sure it's centered. And you're going to want it a little bit forward instead of completely straight up. Once you're done sewing it on, you make your knot, and you can send this just through to the inside of the neck. Shove that inside, put the cast on tail inside, and a little bit of stuffing. Alright, now you can sew the head on. And again, you're going to want some pins. A few more pins than you think is necessary, because the head is going to be a little top heavy for you trying to sew this on. Okay. And to tilt the head down a little bit into a more natural position, you can fold the front of the neck in a little bit and sew it on like that, rather than have it up here. Okay, and there is your basic horse shape. If you want to add a unicorn horn, I'd recommend getting a spool loom. This one is the Loops and Threads one from Michaels. It has a 5-peg loom on one side. That'll be smaller than the 8-peg. But if you don't have one of these and you do have one of these, I'll show you with both. So, let me see. We're going to make a slip knot, attach it to one of these bottom pegs, and it's going to be a little awkward, but we're going to do a drawstring cast on. It's going to end up looking like this. Come here. Okay, and using your tail to mark which is the first peg, we're going to do 15 rows. Once you got 15 rows done, we're going to do a tiny little drawstring cast off. Right. Stretch your stitches. Pull one side. And make a knot. Send that through to the inside. And then we're going to pull the other tail just enough to neaten the edges. And then we can sew this onto the head. Let me see. You're gonna want it almost between the ears, but forward a little bit. Okay, it should look like this. And like I said, if you don't have a tiny spool, you can use the 8-peg. It'll be the same thing, drawstring cast on, 15 rows, drawstring cast off. Once you have your 15 rows done and you drawstring cast off, you can pull the cast on tail and make a knot on the inside. Oops. And you can pull the cast off tail just like before, just enough to neaten the edges. And it's gonna look like this. So it'll be a little thicker, maybe a tiny bit longer, and it'll be a little more sturdy for sure. This one's kind of floppy, but if you like the 8-peg better, you can do it that way, or you can use the spool loom. Next, if you want Pegasus wings, they're done on the 8-peg, and you're going to need 3 pieces for each wing. So you're going to want a 13, I think? 13 rows, one with 17 rows, and one with 21 rows. They're all drawstring cast on and cast off. You just want 13, 17, and 21. To finish each piece, you're going to pull the cast on tail tight and knot it on the inside. Stuff your cast on tail inside, and then pull your cast off tail tight as well. And you should have something that looks like this. Don't forget to wrap your loom twice for a long tail, because we're going to be using this for sewing for all 3 of the pieces that make up the wing, and you're going to need 2 sets. Okay, once you have your 3 pieces, they should look like this. You got 21 rows, 17 rows, and 13 rows. And to sew them together, we're gonna make it like this. So take your longest one got it, and we're gonna use this one to go up through the middle so that it lays on top, and put this one to the side for now. You're gonna make it fan out to one side. So for this one, we're gonna make it fan out to the right, and when you make the second one, you're gonna make it fan out to the left. So you've gone up the middle, and we're just gonna put a few stitches in this. And then make a knot at the out end. And then send this down through. And cut the tail. Now use the tail from the middle one to sew on the small one. And then you have a cute little wing. A little more defined on the back. Now take the final tail and use this one to sew it to the body. Make sure that the ends are right on top of each other, and it gives it a little curve. I'm going to put it about here. Just a few stitches to hold it in place. So cute. And there you go. Now, like I said, in order to do this, we're going to fan it out to the left. That'll make it look opposite of the other one. And now you can see these two wings go in opposite directions. That is all the pieces to knit and sew together. For the mane and the tail, there's a few ways that you can do it, but I'll show you the way that I've been doing it. So you're going to take your hair color that you want, grab a book or something solid that is the length of the hair that you want, and just wrap it around like 100 times. Okay, now you can snip that, hold it in place while you snip the rest of these. And now you have a bunch of lengths of yarn that are the same size. Oops. Now grab a small crochet hook. This one is 3.75 millimeters. I had to buy it specifically for this. You're going to take one of your strands of yarn and fold it in half. And then we'll do the tail, I think. That should be easier. Find where you want to put your strand. Put your hook in and come out so that you've got just a stitch or two. Attach the yarn and pull it through. So now you've got a loop. Put your two strands through that loop and pull tight. And now you have a beautiful tail. You're gonna have to add like 20 of these. You're gonna want maybe, you know, this many. And then for the mane, you're gonna want to go down in maybe 2 or 3 lines down the back. And a couple in the front. It's going to be a little more difficult around the spots where you have sewn, like say for example this is the seam for the neck and the head. And you're not, okay, there's one, but you're not going to be able to get like that's maybe 2 or 3 stitches there, and that's fine. See, here's just one, and where you did your drawstring is going to be a little more difficult as well, but as long as it's not too many stitches, 2 or 3 is fine. it'll all look uniform when you're finished. Okay, so now there's about that much. And to make it look a little more, give it a little more volume, I usually put a rubber band. Just get like a little tiny rubber band. Wrap it around once or twice. And then fluff it up to the top. Now it looks like that. The ones I use are Rainbow Loom. It's so bright. Rainbow Loom rubber bands, because there's 600 in a pack and it's only a couple of dollars from any craft store like Michael's. And the only other thing that I would do with this is probably steam it so that the strips of yarn lay more flat, or more straight anyway. Onto the mane. I'd say 2 rows is probably fine. Start here. Come on. Just in front of the horn, and you only need really one. And then follow along around the horn on both sides and just straight down. Okay, this is what it's looking like now. I went around the horn, and then I've got, I'll show this, two lines going down the back. I would definitely steam this, unless you like it kind of curly. And if you want more volume and more curly, you can unravel the strands of yarn. So if you're using regular acrylic, there will be, what is it, 4, I think? There will be 4 little mini strands in your strand of yarn, and if you unravel those, which takes a long time, you'll have a lot more volume and it'll be really kinky. You can trim this at this point. You can braid it, you can leave it in, just leave it the way it is. And I think the only other thing that I would do with this is probably the eyes, and that's it. And there you go. Thanks for watching.